is fast approaching a Friday deadline to fund the Department of Homeland Security. The sides still very far apart on these issues. Here's Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
In our view, the ball is in the court right now of the Republicans. Either they're going to agree to dramatically reform the way in which ICE and other immigration enforcement agencies are conducting themselves so that they're behaving like every other law enforcement agency in the country, or they're making the explicit decision to shut down the Coast Guard, shut down FEMA, and shut down TSA, and that would be very unfortunate.
Democrats are calling for significant changes to ICE policy. These are them generally in front of you. The main sticking point that is quite sticky in these negotiations is this requirement of judicial warrants over administrative warrants. That has been an issue important to Democrats and so far a non-starter for Republicans. We're joined now by CNN political commentator and Democratic strategist Maria Cardona and Republican strategist and former White House spokesperson during the George W. Bush administration, Pete Seat. Good to see both of you. Thanks for being here. Pete, I want to start first with you. We heard from the minority leader there, Hakeem Jeffries. He's saying it's on Republicans to respond at this point. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely not. Senate Majority Leader John Thune put it best when he said this is not a blank check situation, and yet Democrats are acting as if it is. You know, they fail to realize that this negotiation, which they demanded and Republicans agreed to in good faith, requires give and take. Democrats are going to have to give something in order to take something. We know that Republicans agree with some of the 10 demands Democrats have put forward, a list that started at 3 and ballooned to 10. There are some things Republicans agree on. But we have not heard a willingness from Democrats to address the violent threats against ICE in trying to enforce the laws of this country, nor have we heard a willingness from them to encourage state and local law enforcement agencies to cooperate with ICE in enforcing the laws of this nation. It's just a bunch of performative fist pounding from Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and very little work getting done.
Maria, I would assume you have maybe a different take on this.
Quite a different take, and it's the same take that the vast majority of the American people have, Jessica. The American people have stated very clearly they do not like the way that immigration agents, both ICE as well as the Border Customs and Border Patrol agents, have handled the immigration enforcement plan that comes down from Stephen Miller and Donald Trump. They've been very clear through protests, through polls, through calls to members' offices, not just Democrats, many Republicans, and Pete knows this very well. They are very concerned, Republicans are, about how ICE is doing their job and how Americans have been affected by it. They have killed 2 Americans thus far. They are not going after the most violent. They are not going after the most dangerous. They are going after moms, not murderers. They are going after grandmothers, not gang members. They are going after children instead of child traffickers. And that's why Americans are really drawing a line in the sand, and Democrats are responding to what Americans want. And look, this issue of judicial warrants, Jessica, that polls in the 70s, in the 80s, because the vast majority of Americans understand that no one should be afraid that ICE agents, or frankly, any enforcement agency, is going to burst into your home in the middle of the night without a judicial warrant. We are simply asking for ICE and Border Patrol agents to act in the same manner per the Constitution and per the law that every single other law enforcement agency has to abide by. The vast majority of Americans understand that. And what else do Republicans don't like about this? The agents should not be masked because they need to know, people need to know who is going after them if they're about to get pounded down into the concrete. They should know what agency that they are being chased by if they're going to be dragged off the street and out of their cars violently, the way that ICE agents and CPB have done. So Americans have spoken. This isn't just Democrats. So if Republicans want to continue to be deaf about this, they're going to continue to pay a political price. And if they don't come to the table and they shut down DHS, that's on them, Jessica. They need to come to the table. They control everything right now. Democrats are there to negotiate. So let's do that.
And Pete, look, I've had a number of Republicans on this show even who have told me they're open to some of those demands that we listed out for everyone to see. Even the president, was willing to kind of get in here and start, with the initial compromise that he did with Senate Democrats. What does that tell you about where this may go? Do you think that actually at the end of this, because does seem to be some bipartisan support on some of these issues, that we might see some changes?
Well, this impasse, this stalemate, this logjam, whatever your preferred terminology is, will likely be broken when that gentleman who works on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue is fully engaged in the conversation. It's likely going to take President Trump meeting with congressional leadership to hammer all this out. But again, Democrats will not get everything they want. They put out their Christmas list, wish list, as Senator Katie Britt put it, of those 10 demands. They're likely not going to get all 10, and they need to recognize that. Even Steny Hoyer, Democrat member of Congress, came out a couple of days ago and said, hey, we're probably going to have to take all DHS funding except ICE out of this conversation so that we're not holding hostage TSA, Coast Guard, and FEMA. So some Democrats are even moving in the direction of trying to get this taken care of and not putting the American people in harm's way.
Marie, we have just a little bit of time. I'll let you have a last thought on that.
But you know what we need before that actually happens, Pete, is for Republicans to actually come to the table. And that's what Republicans have refused to do thus far. And so I think what we're facing is Republicans having a choice. Are they going to listen to the American people who have said very clearly they do not want to continue with how this immigration, this horrific, cruel, violent immigration enforcement has done to all of these communities? Are they going to listen to decency, civility, and the ideas that Democrats have to come to the table and realize that this is an issue that Americans really want to be dealt with?
All right, Pete Seat and Maria Cardona, good to see both of you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Jessica.
American skier Lindsey Vogn's quest for gold ends in an Italian hospital. More on her status when we come back here on the CNN Newsroom.